This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Ngunnawal people. We acknowledge their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture, and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. The Run Bitch Run podcast is dedicated to the women in Australia that are taken from us every year due to intimate partner and gender-based violence. The attitudes of men in this country towards women paints a very ugly picture. Fervent denial of gender inequality, victim blaming, and the instant dismissal of abuse claims when a woman steps forward all contribute to the culture of violence that we bear witness to every single day. This podcast aims to help women spot the red flags before it's too late. When we see the signs, we can break the cycle. Before we dive into today's episode, I do want to acknowledge that some of the topics discussed may be triggering or difficult for some people to hear. If you or someone you know and care about is affected by intimate partner violence or abuse, please consider reaching out for help. You are most definitely not alone. Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to the Run Bitch Run podcast. My name is Audrey. I think this is episode 6 of the podcast. If you've been here since episode 1, thank you so much. I'm recording this in my bedroom on my very creaky bed, so I'm so sorry if you can hear as I move some creakiness in the background. I swear I'm not doing anything nefarious. My bed frame just desperately needs to be replaced. Anyway, you can probably tell I'm feeling significantly better than I was a couple of months ago. Essentially, I did take a little bit of a break from the pod again just to kind of get stuff under control. I was not feeling good towards the end of winter, but spring has sprung. I woke up this morning and driving to work, there was so many I was trying to think of the word for them, but like when the trees flower and then all the shit falls off the leaves. They're not leaves, but like the I don't know, petals. I don't know. My mum's a horticulturalist, okay, not me. And yeah, I was driving to work and they were just everywhere. If you're not from this part of the world, in Canberra, where I'm from, we have these trees and everyone loves to call them the cum trees or the jizz trees. So they're essentially like these white trees that when spring hits and everyone starts getting hay fever, you also get this really delicious smell of cum in the air. It's really something. So that is also a pleasant part of spring I've been enjoying. But yay, seasonal depression is out the window because we're out of winter. So spring actually is doing me a world of good, I think. The longer days, the ability to go for a walk and not be freezing my fucking tits off, it's really nice. And I turned 29 recently also. That was something big that happened for me at the start of August. So I think it's been about a month now since I turned 29. I got my vision board sorted because it's only 334 days, I want to say, until my 30th birthday, which is going to be a big one. I think I'm going to throw some kind of fun little party. But yeah, I turned 29. So just kind of been enjoying my last year of my 20s and setting goals for the future, already kicking off some of those goals, which is really great. I got an IUD put in. That was one of the things on my vision board. So I got that put in like a couple weeks after I had my birthday, and I am still dealing with that. So I think I got my first IUD like 7 years ago now, maybe, or actually it's probably 8 years ago. Or you know what, now that I'm doing the math, I think it's like 9. I think I had my first one like 9 years ago, and I do not remember what that was like. I just remember I bled a lot, and at the moment I'm not like bleeding profusely or anything. I do just have like constant spotting, which is so not ideal, and it kind of kicked off when I got my period last week, so yay. But they say I'm only supposed to deal with this for like 3 months. So, we're trucking along. It's been, I think, 3 weeks since I got it done. So I'm in for the semi-long haul, but that's okay. I have, thankfully the cramping has been substantially lessened. It was really fucking bad last week. Like, I was in substantial amount of pain. I had to take some time off work, but thankfully I think things are out, like, starting to settle down now. So that's nice. If you're considering getting an IUD, I really would highly recommend it. I know that in the next 3 to 6 months, I'm going to stop getting my period. My mood's going to be way better. I feel like it's already been better, to be honest. And I'm going to just have all the pleasures of an IUD, and that's as much as I'll go into that, but you can read between the lines. Anyway, what else am I doing? So I am moving into my own home for the first time ever soon, which unfortunately, obviously not rich enough to actually buy my own home. That's not what I'm talking about, but renting my own home. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. I'm going to move in on my own, which I did not realize just how expensive it is. But, I kind of knew because I've been doing this shit on my own, but I've had like housemates and stuff. They've always split the bills, but I'm willing to make it work. I don't care what I have to do. I want to live on my own. I think everyone can people that are listening to this probably understand what I'm saying when you like reach a point where you're like, I just simply cannot live with someone again. And I think a lot of my friends are at the same level, so I relate to that. And I, especially after like breaking up with my ex, things have, we're still living together, so that's a lot of fun. But thankfully, it's getting a lot easier to deal with now that we're so close to the end of the lease, which is ending in November. So we're almost there. We're like so close. But I'm just, I have a lot to look forward to, is kind of what I'm saying. So you can tell I'm definitely feeling substantially less lonely than I was like a couple months ago. So, improvements. I hope everyone's feeling as good as I am. And if you're not, that's okay too. Sometimes seasonal affective depression can take a little bit to work its way out of your system. So if you're still not appreciating truly that spring has sprung, give it another couple weeks. And I'm hopeful that you will be fine. And if not, I have tons of resources in my Instagram. So please go to my resources for support. Anyway, let's see. What's a fun story from me recently? Oh, that's right. So, fun story from me. I was dating this guy who was like, I don't know, double my age. But, I thought this is fine. We love a daddy. This is all good. And this person in particular was a producer. They have like a lot of experience, like 25 plus years of experience, and they were like, oh yeah, Audrey, I'll make your podcast sound so good, I'll go over it with a fine-tooth comb. I'm gonna make it so good. And I'm like, it's pretty great already, but I'll let you look at it. And we dated for what, like 8 weeks. That man never listened to that shit once. He never listened to one episode. And considering I have friends that I've only recently met, shout out Sam, love you, mate, who have been listening to my podcast and, on a friendly basis, it's like the effort. It's just so simple to put in like the smallest modicum of effort. And yet, these men, they refuse. They simply refuse. My episodes aren't even that long, bro. Like, just skip through and quote something back to me. I'd still feel quite impressed that you listened or acted like it. No, actually, I need to have higher standards. If you want to date me, you've got to listen to at least one episode. That's my new rule. But, I don't really want his feedback anyway. So, clearly, that didn't work out. But anyway, I've already got the next episode planned as well based on something else that's happened to me recently. So we love that. And that's going to be on the Madonna Whore complex, if anybody knows what that is. I'm going to obviously go into it, give a big detailed explanation. But yes, so very exciting. Today's topic, though, is on ghosting. So we've all been ghosted, haven't we? We've all probably ghosted someone too. And we will go into that in a second. But yes, thank you so much for being here with me today for the 6th episode of the Run Bitch Run podcast. It's getting more fun, and I think I'm falling into more of a rhythm with the pod. Even though I've had to take some time off to do my own, deal with my own personal stuff, I do feel like I'm falling into a bit of a rhythm. So that's been really fun. fun. And I'm just so grateful for everyone that's come along with me on this journey. I'm going to keep going. I have no intentions of stopping. So if you have ideas, feel free to let me know. I think there's a feedback request form or something in my link tree. So yeah, without further ado, let's get the fuck into it. Ghosting. Getting ghosted. Going ghost. What the fuck am I talking about? Well, ghosting someone is the practice of ending a personal relationship by suddenly and without any explanation withdrawing from all communication. A recent study commissioned by Choosy in partnership with consumer research group Core Data, the Choosy Swipe Right Modern Dating Report 2023 surveyed over 1,206 Australians. The research explores the cost of dating in 2023, how Aussie singles aged between 18 to 49 view and value dating, and their behaviours towards dating and relationships, as well as how their perceptions and needs in the dating world have shifted in recent years. The unfortunate reality of ghosting looms very large in the dating scene, with most Aussies, 71%, reporting personal experiences of being abruptly cut off by a romantic interest. In other words, Patrick Swayze, eat your heart out. A fantastic article written by Izzy White on the Fashion Journal website, which I will link down below. It's called Bamboozling Ghosting Stories from Fashion Journal Readers by Izzy White. I wanted to read these and do kind of a dramatic reading of them just so that they would really sink in, so that anyone listening to this can understand sort of where our mindset is when we get ghosted. So all of the people that these stories are written by use she, her pronouns, just saying. So let's get into it. The first one is from May, who's 27. I believe all of the names are changed as well, but for this story, this is written by someone named May. I slept with a guy I met out one night randomly. He asked me on a date a week later, and we locked it all in. Then the day of, I messaged to confirm before realizing he'd blocked me on all social media. He was the one who messaged me! I texted him to say he was shady and rude, and he didn't reply. Flex Mummy has an interesting theory that ghosting is the least cruel thing you can do because it eradicates all hope. I do tend to agree. At least I can hate my ghosters instead of pining over them. So true, May. So true. The next story comes from April, 25. Around 4 years ago, I matched with a guy on Tinder that I'd seen out before, and I thought he was cute. He was 9 years my senior, which made me feel a little nervous considering I'd only ever dated people my age. My apprehension dissipated once we started chatting though. He was sweet and funny and super charismatic. We went on a date, hit it off, and continued to hang out for the following 48 hours straight. Both of us called into work sick and commenced our whirlwind romance. We swapped stories, cooked together, slept in, walked his dog, and I met his housemates. It felt very intense very quickly. After returning to our regular lives, we started dating exclusively, with him being the one to initiate the "I prefer we didn't see other people" conversation. He'd warned me that he was going on a holiday to Canada with his best friend for a few weeks, a trip that slated for around the 3-month mark in our relationship. I didn't think much of it, but it did give him ample opportunity to put a pause on the whole monogamy thing. But I did give him an ample opportunity to put a pause on the whole monogamy thing if he wanted to sleep around during his vacation. Very honourable of you, Chucky. In retrospect, there must have been some red flags. Why else would I say that? The memories are a little patchy. You can probably guess what happened next. He told me he'd call often and message me as much as he could. Aside from a few photos at the very beginning, I didn't hear from him while he was away. And I knew the date he was getting back was getting much closer, and I followed him on Instagram, so was unashamedly waiting for him when he announced his arrival in Melbourne. I remember crying, in my room after it had been a week since he'd been back and I'd heard nothing. I asked him to get a coffee, and plot twist, he didn't respond. Eventually, I got angry, really angry, and sent him a furious paragraph detailing how he'd made me feel stupid and gaslit, asking him why he duped me into a monogamous relationship just to pull a Houdini after his dumb little holiday. He, unsurprisingly, never responded, so I blocked him on everything to avoid the heartache. I've seen him around since then, and he's pretended to not know who I am. His hairline is receding dramatically, which makes me feel a little better. Honestly, I get it. You know, there's nothing wrong with a man going bald, there's nothing wrong with a man with a receding hairline, but if they're ghosting you, I feel like these are low blows that we get to have. So, the next story comes from Oriana, who is 23. We'd been seeing each other for about a month, hanging out every couple of days. We were talking about getting serious, the future, etc. He suddenly turned cold, and a few days later blocked me without any warning. My best friend saw him a week after he started getting distant, walking with another girl. He's had 3 girlfriends since I was seeing him. Boys are losers. Totally agree, Oriana. Boys are losers. The next story comes from Zuri, 27. We met on a dating app and had instant banter, so arranged to meet up. It was hands down the best date of my life. We had way too many drinks and an equal amount of laughs before ending up back at his for a rooftop dance-off and a cheeky sleepover with very little sleep. The boy love-bombed the shit out of me. We talked about how we both rarely dated but somehow felt like we'd known each other for ages, how it was super organic and we instantly clicked, you know, all the usual lines. He was interstate over the summer, but we spoke over calls and texts for 3 months, day in, day out. Once he moved back though, he suddenly stopped replying. Sick one, bro. Never saw him again. My girlfriends send me snaps of his profile on dating apps, so he's still doing the rounds and likely love bombing the shit out of others. That's fucked. We love when they love bomb and then they fuck off. It's a likely story. The last story comes from Neve, who's 26. I met Jack late last year during the Sydney lockdown. So I assume this was probably, 2 years ago maybe. We matched on Hinge and decided to do the classic park and beers meetup to assess if either of us was psycho or liberal. If you're an American listening to this, liberal means right wing. We clicked, ended up back at his place, ate some pizza, and I stayed over. After that first date, it all moved pretty fast. On Mondays, he'd come to trivia with my housemates. They loved him. On Saturdays, I'd go to the place he shared with his sister. I didn't particularly love her. By the second month of dating, we'd planned a weekend getaway to his family home in Albury. On the trip, we went bushwalking. Within the first hour or so, it started to rain and we got very, very lost. Somehow though, after hours of searching, we managed to find the trail and made it safely home. We'd accomplished our first weekend away and I decided I was in love. Plus, it seemed reciprocated. At this point, we'd been together for 3 months, so I decided to double check that we were exclusive. He said he didn't want to sleep with anyone else, but he would get back to me in 2 to 3 business days. Which, I knew it was a strange thing to say, but I left it. I was going to the US for Christmas and we'd figure it out when I got back. The night before I left, I hosted a dinner at my house with all my family, friends, and Jack. To my surprise, he introduced himself as my boyfriend. The next morning, I gave him his Christmas present. It was an engraved compass that read, "In case you ever get lost again, love, Neve." Ironically, after I gave him that compass, he did get lost. So lost that he vanished out of my life altogether. Jack didn't contact me at all after I left for the US. After a few failed attempts on my end, I sent him a message saying I was worried and wanted to know if he was okay. He said he'd gotten sick and had been quite depressed while recovering, so I decided to give him space. We went for a drink the day after I got home. The time together was short, but he kissed me goodbye and asked to see me again on the weekend. Saturday rolled around and I messaged him. No response. On Sunday, I called. No response. Monday, I called again. No response. A week or so later, I finally got him on the phone and he agreed to meet me the next day to talk. An hour before that, he cancelled. We rescheduled and he cancelled that too. I called or messaged every other day for about 3 weeks until finally I sent a message basically saying he'd hurt me, I cared for him, goodbye and good luck. I got no response. Do you know what's more embarrassing than being broken up with? Having to chase someone down so they'll break up with you. Oh, Neve. I get it, babe. I do. I get it. I wish I didn't, but I do. The last story we have today comes from Shiva, 28. I was dating this guy for 9 months before he eventually broke it off. He couldn't commit to a relationship despite telling me he loved me and introducing me to all his friends. We decided to stay friends and hung out every now and then. We had plans to go to dinner, and that week he ghosted me. Unfollowed on social media, the whole deal. I later found out he had a girlfriend and had been with her the entire time we were dating. She'd found out he'd been secretly messing around, so he'd cut ties with me to win her back. I know this because they had an on-again, off-again relationship, and he'd slide into my DMs like clockwork every time they broke up. He'd apologize to me, only to ghost me again when they got back together. Ghosting sucks. Just be honest with people. Shiva! Fucking oath. I also had that before, where they ghost and then they come back, and we call that episode 4, breadcrumbing. Anyway. So there's another article that I wanted to have a chit chat about. There's another article I wanted to read on the podcast, and it's written by Julia Dorazio. It is called, I Tracked Down 3 Men Who Ghosted Me to Find Out Why They Did It. As you can imagine, I was quite intrigued when I was doing research for this episode, so I thought, what a nice little article to put in there, to kind of, on like a reflection, like we're going back to find out why they've ghosted. We're not just talking about them ghosting, we're trying to figure it out, get the psychology behind it. So let's read that, let's see if that worked out. So, ghost number 1. So this is from, I assume it's from Julia's perspective. So here's what happened. Ghost number 1, and the names are changed again. Ghost number 1 is Reagan. I think it's Regan, but I'm going to say Reagan because I think that sounds more elegant. In today's modern world, this may be considered acceptable. In a nutshell, Regan and I met on Tinder, except we never did meet. For 6 months we chatted back and forth, and I was given false hope that we would one day meet in real time. Eventually, I got the courage to ask him what his endgame with our online chat was, as he was never able to pinpoint a time to meet in person. I knew he was interested, as his interaction with my Instagram account told me so, and our chat was more than just one-liners. Apparently, not having a bar of my to meet or not interrogation, he disappeared quicker than blowing out a flame. He blocked me on WhatsApp and Instagram the next day, and it had all turned into cyber dust. A year on, I received a notification on Instagram to say I had a new follower, and it was Regan. I decided to just lay it on the table and ask him why he disappeared. Regan told me that the distance became a factor into why he decided to become, distant. If we were to have arranged a date, he would have had to fork out at least £30, $55, on transport just to get into London. He lived only an hour out of the city. He said it would have been a costly date, and the prospect of dating someone long distance wasn't feasible nor appealing. To me, it didn't make any sense to put it all down to him losing dollars on why he decided not to meet up, and I didn't really buy his excuse. Time is money, and if you spent 6 months chatting to someone that you have no intention of meeting up with, I feel like that's a costly exercise. Honestly, same. I feel like, why would you spend 6 months, and how many minutes of the day are you realistically talking to this person? But she's so right. Is your time worth nothing? Are you saying, on one hand, you're saying that your time, it just doesn't make sense to me. On one hand, you're saying your time is important, therefore you shouldn't spend money on long distance, because then you would be wasting time, but you've wasted 6 months on the chat leading up. Anyways, doesn't make sense. So anyway, ghost number 2 was Charlie, and Julia explains, "Oh, Charlie." I would really like to know what goes on inside that brain of yours. Same queen for most men that I date. Anyway, Charlie was the man that went miles beyond what any man has ever done for me in an instant. Charlie was my first $700 first date guy. Sorry, not first $700. Jesus, can you imagine she's had more than one? Charlie was my $700 first date guy. A man who decided to fly from London to Paris on the day just to hang out with me. I felt pretty unique at the time that this gorgeous man went to this epic length to be in my company in another city for 24 hours in the city of love. Fast forward to the next week, and I was feeling pretty optimistic about seeing him again when I went back to London. Just for the record, she's in London, but she's Australian, okay? So it still counts as, talking about Australian experiences, okay? It still counts. On the day I arrived, we went to the local markets and had a picnic in the park. He told me he made no plans that weekend as he wanted to spend the weekend with Molly. Cute. That evening, we watched murder documentaries in bed with Chinese takeout. Perfect. The next morning, despite the fact that a day before he declared it a Julia weekender, he had now got plans. After that, it all flipped. Instead of Charlie messaging me, I messaged him. His responses were uncharacteristically late and ever brief. And then, nothing. I messaged him a few months later. He responded. I started with a short talk to ease him into it and then went in with a big hard question. Why did you run away? Of course, he had been busy and admitted he hadn't intentionally ghosted me and apologized. Do we believe him? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Of course you fucking know what you're doing. Like, you cannot be hot and heavy on someone and then lack the common sense to know that if you pull back after that, that's going to have an impact, Like, you can't just, I didn't mean it. Of course you meant it. Let's be so for real. Just put your cards on the proverbial table and that's it. Why do we have to bullshit each other? Ghost number 3, Bernard. Interesting choice for a fake name, but Bernard. This happened over 4 years ago, but this ghost still haunts me. Bernard was the quintessential good-looking hipster. Dark head of wavy hair, John Lennon type specs, and wearing the type of clothes you would expect to find at your nearest retro Vinnies. He was an introvert, highly intellectual, and of course, ticking all my boxes. We met while traveling and seemed to be following the same backpacking trail. We got along like a house on fire. The attraction seemed to be mutual, and the intensity ramped up one drunken night where we shared our first kiss after vigorous flirting. As a result, my signature red lips made him almost clown-like the next morning. We decided to keep the flame alive by meeting up in a new city a few weeks later. He welcomed me with open arms, and it made my cheeks blush with joy. But within 24 hours, those arms turned stiff, cold, and I was ignored, even though we were staying in the same accommodation. This floored me harder than the hostel bed I laid on. Hilarious line there, Julia. Love that. Why the change of heart? It dumbfounded me, and I had to know. When I put the question to him, he told me he decided to back away because he felt a chain reaction coming on. He wanted to break free before he fell hard for me. Sounds plausible, but to cut someone off completely for someone you supposedly care about doesn't seem smart. In any case, after tracking down all 3 of my ghosts, I managed to find my answers, and while making men disappear isn't a particularly fun magic power to have, getting an explanation from them certainly made me feel like a magician. Well done, Julia, because honestly, I still to this day don't know why most of the men that have ghosted me have done it, and I think there's some peace and solace in that it's probably a them problem. Did I make mistakes? Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I do deserve any kind of answer or explanation, or maybe I don't. In their eyes, maybe I don't. Anyway. If we go back to the choosy swipe right modern dating report that I mentioned earlier, it was reported that after being ghosted, the ghostee is left with a roller coaster of emotions, including disappointment, 38%, rejection, 33%, confusion, 29%, insecurity, 26%, or even a touch of embarrassment, 27% of people. However, what the study also reveals is that almost 3 out of 4 daters, 73%, admit to having ghosted someone themselves, citing disinterest or a lack of motivation as the primary reason. So, we know that the same people who are ghosting others are also being ghosted themselves, right? So why is it still so prevalent in dating culture if it only exists to make people feel like shit? And I think there's a few points to kind of consider on that front. So I think personally. One, a lot of people have a lack of closure skills. They're afraid of confrontation. They just are generally emotionally avoidant. I think a lot of people don't have the emotional tools to say, like, I'm not feeling this, and doing it respectfully, right? So instead they decide, I'll just bail, because it's a significantly easier task to just, cut someone off rather than writing, I'm sorry, I don't think we're vibing. Even if that still feels too much, sending like one sentence is so much more than just cutting someone off out of nowhere, right? And ghosting often correlates with avoidant attachment. So when you panic at the idea of emotional depth, the safest thing to do is run away, right? That's what we saw with Julia's stories. I think there's also the element of people enjoying anonymity without consequences, and having dating apps exist the way that they do, the way that they're programmed, like it just makes it so much easier to ghost people when you can literally unmatch, block them, and just fuck off without feeling guilty or awkward. Like there's no survey that you have to fill out, right? After you unmatch with someone on dating apps, it'll just say, did you meet this person generally? You say no, and then that's it. Like they don't make you do anything, which not that they have to, but it just makes it a lot easier for people. So it kind of creates distance without consequences, and it's almost normal. Like it's more normal now, I feel, in 2025 to just cut people off than not to, and the last one as well, I think the biggest factor is self-preservation. So on some occasions, and I'm saying this because I've been here before and a lot of my friends have too, ghosting can actually be about safety. So if you don't feel safe with someone that you're talking to, like if somebody is exhibiting signs of verbal abuse or harassment or stalking, in those situations, it's kind of the only safe escape is to cut it off, and it's the best one to do. Like realistically, I don't think anyone would fault you for cutting off someone that you felt was abusive or a danger to yourself. And I think honestly, out of all the reasons, like the three reasons I talked about, I think that's the one that kind of hits closest to home, because that's also the main reason that a lot of my friends have ghosted people. It's come from a place of them not feeling safe and feeling kind of backed into a corner, with the only way to sort of remove themselves is to ghost that person. So I think that's probably the most valid reason for ghosting, not even just as a woman, but regardless of gender. If someone's making you feel unsafe, you do have a right to cut that person off without feeling bad about it. So with everything we've talked about today, how do we move on from being ghosted, right? Speaking from experience, as I've talked about, it's a fucked feeling. Like it's really a fucked feeling. But I think what we can really tie it back into is that ultimately it's a them issue, right? Not a you issue. Unless we're talking about the safety thing that we just touched on, but let's talk about just people being shit, right? That is a them issue, not a you issue, okay? Instead of spiraling on, what did I do wrong? I think it's good to kind of flip it to, do you even want someone in your life that handles conflict by vanishing into thin air, right? Because that's probably speaking to them being quite avoidant. And that is a no from me. I think being ghosted is probably just the universe's way of showing you who's not worth your energy, right? Like the trash is taking itself out. Let's be so for real. And trust me when I say this, as a now 29-year-old elderly woman, your time is just far too valuable for those shitty, unfinished conversations. Maybe they weren't shitty, but life is too short for unfinished conversations. You should be able to say what you think. You should be able to say what you feel. And people shouldn't, generally, unless it's hurting someone, they shouldn't judge you for that. You should be able to feel your feelings how you want to, and know that you are worthy. Okay, listen to me. You are worthy of genuine closure. And I say, just from me, fuck anybody, honestly, that doesn't think that. You are so deserving of genuine closure. I think every single person on this fucking godforsaken planet is worth at least a sentence or anything for closure. However, as I did say, if you're feeling unsafe, fuck them off. And that's my takeaway. Wow. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Run Bitch Run podcast. That was our episode on ghosting. If I ever get a lot of like stories, or if I ever get like I can compile some more stuff together and do potentially like a part 2, I'd love to do a part 2 of a few of the other episodes I've done as well, like on love bombing, gaslighting, that kind of stuff. I think now that I've refined the format a little more of the pod, I think that I could actually do those episodes again and make them 10 times better. But anyway, we shan't dwell. We shan't dwell on the past. We're going to move forward. So next episode, I think I'm hoping to bring that one out relatively soon, because I'm going to strike while the iron is hot, and the Madonna Hall complex is at front of mind for me at the moment. So I'm hoping to record that episode of the podcast in the next couple of weeks. And then that'll probably be out at the end of September, maybe hopefully start of October. And yes, that's pretty much it from me, honestly. Life's good at the moment, guys. I hope that you're feeling it as well. I feel like there's positive things happening, positive change coming. I think we're entering, if I'm not mistaken, it's December. So I think we're entering, well, soon it'll be Sagittarius. I fucking can't remember. I think we're in Libra currently. So it's Libra month. We love that. Love our Libras. And yes, I hope, shout out to all my Libras. What the fuck? I'm just rambling now. Okay. Have an excellent day, night, whatever it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And I hope this episode was useful for you. I hope that you gained some knowledge or had a little giggle. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.